White House release published Sunday, October 26, 2025. Agreement between the United States of America and Malaysia on reciprocal trade. The United States and Malaysia have signed an agreement to strengthen their trade relationship. Both countries commit to shared values such as sovereignty, economic prosperity, and resilient supply chains. The agreement aims to enhance reciprocity by addressing tariff and non-tariff barriers. Malaysia will apply specific customs duty rates to U.S. goods, while the United States will apply revised reciprocal tariff rates to Malaysian goods. Malaysia will not impose quantitative restrictions on U.S. imports, except as allowed under international trade rules. Import licensing will not be used to restrict U.S. goods, and any licensing must be transparent and fair. U.S. goods meeting U.S. or international standards can enter Malaysia without extra requirements. Technical regulations must be fair and not act as hidden trade barriers. Malaysia will provide non-discriminatory market access for U.S. agricultural goods. Sanitary and phytosanitary measures must be science-based and not restrict trade unfairly. Malaysia will ensure transparency and fairness in protecting geographical indications, only protecting terms with a clear link to a geographic origin. U.S. market access will not be restricted based on the use of certain cheese and meat terms. Strong protection for intellectual property is included, with enforcement against infringement online and at borders. The agreement covers services, adopting commitments Malaysia makes with other countries, except those with ASEAN. Malaysia will implement good regulatory practices for transparency and predictability. Malaysia will prohibit imports of goods made with forced labor within 2 years and cooperate with the U.S. on enforcement. Labor rights will be protected and labor laws enforced. Malaysia will maintain strong environmental protections and enforce its environmental laws, addressing environmental issues that affect fair trade. In customs and trade facilitation, Malaysia will use technology for pre-arrival processing, paperless trade, and digital procedures for moving goods across borders. Malaysia will align its border policies with future U.S. measures to prevent regulatory loopholes. Value-added taxes that discriminate against U.S. companies will not be imposed. Neither country will challenge each other's export tax rebates at the World Trade Organization. On digital trade, Malaysia will not impose digital services taxes that discriminate against U.S. companies. Digital trade will be supported by avoiding discriminatory measures against U.S. digital services and products. Secure cross-border data transfers will be ensured, and both countries will work together on cybersecurity. Malaysia will consult with the U.S. before entering new digital trade agreements that could affect U.S. interests. U.S. companies will not be required to transfer technology or source code as a condition for doing business in Malaysia, except in certain cases such as commercial contracts or legal compliance. Both countries agree not to impose customs duties on electronic transmissions and support a global moratorium on such duties at the WTO. Internal taxes on electronic transmissions are allowed if they follow WTO rules. Rules of origin are designed so benefits mainly go to the U.S. and Malaysia. If third countries benefit too much, rules may be adjusted. If the U.S. restricts imports from a third country for security reasons, it will notify Malaysia, which will adopt similar measures or agree on a timeline to address shared concerns. Malaysia will act against unfair practices by third country companies that harm U.S. exports or increase low-priced exports to the U.S., and adopt measures to support shipbuilding and shipping by market economy countries. Malaysia will work with the United States to regulate trade in national security-sensitive technologies and goods, aligning with U.S. export controls and restricting transactions with individuals and entities on U.S. sanctions lists. Malaysia will explore a system to review inbound investments for national security risks in sectors like critical minerals and infrastructure. The United States may consider Malaysia's cooperation when applying its own export controls and investment reviews. The United States will work with Malaysia to improve defense trade. Malaysia will enforce measures to combat transshipment and duty evasion, entering a duty evasion cooperation agreement with the United States. If Malaysia signs a trade agreement with another country that threatens U.S. interests, the United States may end this agreement after consultations. Malaysia agrees not to purchase nuclear reactors or related materials from certain countries unless no alternatives exist. Malaysia will promote U.S. investment in key sectors such as minerals, energy, telecommunications, transportation, and infrastructure. The United States may support investment financing in Malaysia through agencies like the Export-Import Bank and International Development Finance Corporation. Malaysia aims to facilitate about $70 billion in job-creating investment in the United States over the next 10 years. Malaysia will ensure its state-owned enterprises act commercially and do not discriminate against U.S. goods or services. Subsidies for these enterprises are limited to public service needs, ensuring a level playing field for U.S. companies. Upon request, Malaysia will share information about subsidies given to manufacturing enterprises and address any impacts on trade with the United States. Malaysia intends to purchase U.S. origin goods as outlined in the agreement annex. Both countries recognize their rights under World Trade Organization agreements, including the right to protect national security and address unfair trade practices. The agreement enters into force 60 days after both countries complete legal procedures or on another agreed date. Either country may request changes to the agreement, which must be agreed upon in writing. Changes take effect 60 days after both sides complete legal steps. Nothing in the agreement prevents either country from imposing tariffs to address unfair trade, import surges, or protect security. If one country believes the other is not complying, it may review the agreement and take action under its domestic law, seeking consultations first when possible. Either country may terminate the agreement with written notice, effective 180 days after notification. Annexes, appendices, and footnotes are part of this agreement. The agreement was signed in Kuala Lumpur on October 26, 2025, by President Donald J. Trump for the United States and Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim for Malaysia. The document clarifies several terms including customs duty, import licensing, geographical indications, intellectual property rights, labor rights, public interest regulation, prudential reasons for financial safety, and definitions of confidential information. Annexes and an appendix are included with the agreement. Thanks for listening. The full source material for this summary is in the description below.